Hi guys, this is Anita with your Life Tools. Thanks for joining me today, and if you end up enjoying this video, please give me a like or leave a comment or share or follow me. Much appreciated. So today, I thought I would talk about arguments. Now, we can get in arguments with our coworkers, our friends, parents, children, but I'm talking about romantic relationships with your partner. And why I want to talk about it, I've noticed that when I have experienced a consistent theme with people that I'm working with in my professional life, it makes me feel like this obviously is something that everybody is struggling with. So what about arguments? Should you be arguing in a relationship? What do arguments look like? How often should you be arguing? Should you stay with them? Should you leave them? So we're going to get into some of that. Okay, so I think I'm going to share a story about a relationship. I've been practicing for over 10 years, and so I've met with a lot of families, couples, individuals, even children who go through breakups, new relationships, divorces. So really great spectrum of experiences I can kind of pull from and share with you. There's so many. Sometimes I get a little overwhelmed and I'm not really sure where to start. But I'll start with a common one that I'm noticing in newer relationships. You know, we have a honeymoon phase where things seem perfect and beautiful. And that's where you normally hear people talk about amazing things about their partner, excited to show their partner off, just go through all the experiences they haven't done with them yet. It's a really beautiful time. I believe studies show that it's because it allows you to have that bond and create that. And we put our best self forward. We're showing our best version of ourselves. So the arguments come into play. For some people, it can be fairly immediately. It depends how maybe honest they're being with themselves, or maybe how much the person could be triggering them, or life has its own difficulties and struggles, so it just kind of depends. But typically I would say it seems like around the 3-month mark to 6-month mark is when people or couples start to struggle, and then they try to almost like put it off that it's really not a problem, and then you go into a year of the relationship that you have now invested. Sorry about that. We had some noise disturbances. So where was I? Talking about the honeymoon phase and kind of fading out into that. And when we start to bond in a relationship, that's why it's so important to be really mindful of what you're doing in the beginning stages, for intimacy wise, how much we share, how much you start to blend your life together. Because when you start to go through difficult times, you have to see, is this person that I'm falling in love with willing to work with me and grow with me? And I think that's the most important key in any relationship. So the answer is not like one blanket answer, but when I have couples that I've met with that have come into my office, I don't really analyze the type of fighting that's happening. It's more of how committed are they for the change, how they're both committed. We have this term sometimes like the dance floor, and is this partner going to show up with me and dance with me? We might step on each other's feet while we do it, and it might be beautiful sometimes, and it might look like a mess sometimes, but are they willing to work with you? Or is one on the side of the dance floor and they're feeling embarrassed and confused or alone? So yes, there's going to be fighting in relationships, and they look different for everybody. This might be based on unpopular opinion, but I've even worked with relationships that have gone abusive, essentially, domestic violence, and not in the violence way of it's causing them physical harm, but I think we are not being aware enough of what domestic violence could look like, and that could be verbal or emotional abuse, or financial abuse in a lot of different ways. And until you're educated about it, you'll be surprised how common it actually is. And it's really beautiful to see couples begin to heal themselves and their relationship. Another thing that I love to do with couples is pretending that they have like a little ball of fire that if you open it too much, the wind can blow it out, essentially. If you drop it, it's gone. And you need both hands to hold it and cover it and protect it. And I like to tell couples that a relationship is so important and sacred to protect from the outside world, to be really mindful of that, to be very careful of it. We're in a era of oversharing, or an era of needing to connect and feel validated, and that's when we jeopardize the safety of the relationship. And that can look like speaking with friends or family, or complaining about your relationship on social media or to coworkers. Every time that you do that, you're opening, leaving opportunity for things to harm the relationship versus protecting and saving and keeping it close. Another way to look at it, which is another discussion, is why people have babies, and what do you do with that baby? Typically in a healthy relationship, you cherish that child and you're raising it together. It's a symbol of your love and you're protecting it from the world, right? So baby or not, you kind of think of your relationship as a third person or thing or pet or creature that you guys are trying to raise and protect and grow strong and keep very personal for yourself. So back to arguments. Arguments are kind of impossible to avoid. I have not ran across it, nor have I run through any articles or studies or trainings or other coworkers or professionals that have shared with me that they've met a couple or have experienced not arguing. So that's off the table. It's just going to happen. Now, I think another question a lot of people are saying, we're arguing too much. We're arguing too maybe aggressively or too extremely or too intensely. So those are very important questions. But you also have to consider that what's going on outside the relationship. And is the arguing based on the actual two individuals, or is it based on everything that's kind of happening around them and they're both struggling to figure out how to manage their emotions with each other? Because again, we're already struggling individually to, cope with our feelings and deal with the real world. Now, how am I supposed to do this with a whole nother person that has their own life trauma or experiences, their way of believing and viewing the world? And now you want me to bring another person in and do it with them? Again, essentially you're creating a whole nother being together. And that is an art and it's a practice. It's a beautiful thing that can definitely be successful. It gets better over time. And I hate to say it, sometimes the more time goes, you kind of get hit harder with like bigger problems. But with the practice of all these little problems, you're able to kind of overcome it and accomplish things. So when I work with couples, we always try to have like the main things where we argue. We don't want to do things that could cause lasting or long-term damage to the relationship. Again, if we're thinking of it as a thing or a being. If I'm going to use names or put people down, those are just red flags of unhealthy reactions and behaviors. But again, I wouldn't say it's an impossibility to save the relationship. Again, is the person willing to change? Are they willing to be reflective with you? Are they willing to grow with you? And that's the most beautiful thing, is having somebody willing to grow with you and learn. Because I'm not perfect, they're not perfect. And even if you leave the relationship, realistically, you might find another partner that might be a little bit more calmer or doesn't maybe pick fights with you more or often, or they have more skills. The reality though, the things that you didn't work on and improve on, are going to show up again. They're going to be their own person, but the things that you didn't change in the last relationship are going to be present in this relationship. They might be amplified or not as extreme, but it's not going to change because you are who you are until you do the individual work. So I also like to think of, and I'm sure you guys have heard of this term before, that relationships have seasons and so many stages and so many seasons. And I think couples lack awareness of when to celebrate when the season's going well, and to also have patience and grace when there's some struggles. And so I just want to share that with you guys, how important it is to just have awareness of what season are you going through right now, and what does that look like? What are you guys leaning on to hold hope in the relationship? Relationships are a beautiful thing, and to have to jump from one to one, as where if you throw intimacy involved, sharing your body to each person and having to learn a person over and over again, that's exhausting, lonely, and traumatizing to your body. And so if you're not aware and you're struggling, I would say slow down a little bit and learn more about yourself, right? We can't really ever fail if we just take a step back and learn from ourselves a little bit. And then what else? I'm thinking about relationships and arguments. Sometimes I think relationships and arguments can get really bad when they're triggering very deep insecurities. And it's hard to move past some of the things that might have happened, but they're not impossible. But you have to get to a place where, again, you're like, we are a team. Remember, we're holding our special thing. I like to call mine like a fireball, like a good one. It's hot, so we don't want to squeeze too tight on it, but we don't want to let it go, and don't let too much air out to get it bigger and lose control. But essentially, you're a team, and anything that's causing conflict is your enemy. I hate to say it, but people like to have an enemy. It kind of gives them motivation to fight against it. And so if you can visualize what that enemy might be for your relationship, that's also a good way to visualize, and is a good metaphor of working together. So is that enemy raising children? Because that's extreme exhaustion, changing bodies, schedules, growth as a person. Is the enemy jealousy? Is it anger? Is it new career path, or someone's new goal in life that maybe you don't align with? Is it not seeing eye to eye together, not feeling understood? The enemy can be anything, but identify what that enemy is, and then celebrate you guys being a team together and trying to conquer that enemy. And how are you guys going to do that? When your teammate is low on energy and just exhausted from fighting that enemy, or maybe they didn't get the preparation they needed, or they lack a skill that maybe you do well in, are you going to just tell your enemy to F off and go figure it out on their own? Or are you going to tell your teammate to F off and figure it out alone? Or are you going to try to pick that teammate up so you guys are stronger to figure it out and finish it? I visually am thinking like those team sports. I'm not a sports person, like soccer or basketball or something, and they always talk about how it's so important to work as a team to accomplish and just keep improving your skill and competing against the other teams that seem to figure out how to beat the other team, the enemy. And so if we're considering to keep the relationship safe and protected, if we're considering on how to fight this enemy, if we're considering on how we can grow as a person, I would say that you're in the right relationship if they're willing to do all that with you. I would say that there's a lot of hope and a lot to look forward to, because as we get older, life does not get easier when you're alone. I have worked with people who've been alone or single. They first state that they're very happy, but then they start to share more things that they're struggling with, and really it comes to be loneliness. Not having to have the ability to share these wonderful experiences in the world with someone they can love and trust, not having someone they can turn to when they are struggling. They're coming to therapy instead, which is great, but they need their partner. They need their person they can lean on, because we can't do it all ourselves all the time. And I've also worked with people as old as 80, 90 years old, and I haven't heard any of them say this other than this, is their biggest regret is to not have a partner or even children. They put kind of like their career first, or they're hyper focused on their own self-love, that they end up extremely alone at the end, and they have nobody to share joy with. They have no one to reflect with, and that's sad. So I hope this was insightful. I hope it was helpful, maybe even give you some answers or things to reflect on. Again, I would love to be your coach if interested, but if not, this is some great information to bring to whoever you might be working with. I'm all about just sharing as much information so people can have awareness, because, I mean, come on. If we're all getting along together, if we're all happy, the world is just a better place. So why would I keep that information from others? Thanks for joining me. Thank you.